Okay, and without further ado, I introduce George Nanoski of the Elizabeth Learning Center. Please take it away.
All right, thank you. Can you all see that?
Not
Yes.
yet.
Okay, great.
Oops, no, you're right. I thought I was seeing it.
So are you guys seeing my presentation?
We're seeing you.
You're seeing me. Okay.
I think
Maybe
you've got to reshare.
Maybe I need to share it again.
Yes, I think you need to share it again.
All right. Okay.
All right, without further ado, George
Yes.
Nanoski.
All right, here we go.
Oh,
And
yeah. Oh, there you go. Now,
there we go.
full screen, you've got a winner.
Yeah, full screen. Come on, full screen. There we go. All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I'm honored to be talking to you about the ELC Habitat Gardens in Cudahy in Southeast LA. Before I get into it, I really just want to say a most sincere thank you to South Coast CNPS for the Condi grant that was awarded to us almost 10 years ago. Everything you're going to see in this presentation, it could not have happened without your support. So I am very grateful, very thankful, and let's move on. Let's get into it. So one of the things that is really important to me is to get the students out of the classroom. It's one thing for them to learn something in my class through a lecture or a PowerPoint or a video. It's another thing to get outside and get their hands dirty. So these are some photos of my students when we were making the Vernal Pool Habitat Garden, moving a lot of earth in order to make that possible. But also have students throughout the year working on things like invasive plant removal, propagating new species, processing seeds, just getting in there and learning about the plants, learning about their needs, learning how to properly plant a new plant in the ground so that you're setting it up for success. I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's a sign here too. Some of the Conzi grant funds went to producing interpretive signage. And my students and I had a really amazing time making those interpretive signs because we had to create a layout and pick photos. And we made it so that there was a QR code on the sign so that when you scan it, there's not only the English version, but there's also a Spanish version and Arabic version of the sign because we have a really diverse population of students, and those are the three main languages on our campus. And I didn't want anyone to feel left out. So we made all the signs trilingual. This photo over here in the lower left is probably one of my favorites. One of the yearbook staff captured me with some of the students when we were getting up close and personal with some of the organisms that were alive in the vernal pool when it still had water in it. And just kind of seeing the look on their faces, how engrossed they are with what we're looking at and what we're learning about. That's really what it's all about for me, is students having these experiences with nature that they wouldn't otherwise have living in an urban situation. So again, this is students that are actually collecting seeds for processing. So one of the things my students do is they learn how to process seeds, how to store them, how to propagate them. We have a plant nursery on campus so that we can grow a lot of these species from seed and then reintroduce them into the appropriate garden that we have. We have 3 different gardens, by the way. We have a chaparral garden, chaparral / coastal sage scrub, and then we have a desert garden, and then we have the vernal pools garden. So students kind of get to see at least 3 or 4 different ecosystems that are part of California. They also learn how to do things like prune properly at the right time of the year and how to cut the plant. We always cut back our Motilia poppy so that it has a brand new year of vigorous growth. Again, students very happy, getting dirty, picking things up, getting a shovel in the ground. Just learning how to navigate the habitat spaces without causing any damage to the plants or to like our seed bank that's in like our vernal pool basins. We have a couple of certifications. We're National Wildlife Federation official schoolyard habitats, and we are also official monarch way stations. We have about 4 species of milkweed that we grow in the various gardens, and it's a major initiative this school year to really go heavy on milkweed. We have a major monarch butterfly initiative for all of our gardens. I want to plant a lot of milkweed because we had a really good population come to the school this last season. A lot of monarchs, a lot of eggs, a lot of caterpillars, and we definitely want to expand that. So one of the things I want my kids to get from the Habitat Gardens is that there are actually seasons, even in Southern California. And vernal pools are really good at displaying that and displaying the different kinds of cycles that life goes through. So going from an aquatic phase to a dry phase and everything that happens in between can let you kind of know what time of the year you're in based on what's happening in these pools. The gardens are also used by other classes, so I captured some moments where the digital photography class went out to film and photograph our super blooms that we have occasionally in a good rain year. And so having these gardens on campus isn't just for ecological reasons, but I also think aesthetics are really important, that students should have a moment with something beautiful in their life. And if that's just a moment with a flower or a moment with a butterfly or a moment with a hummingbird, it's all worth it just for them to have that numinous moment with nature. So I'm going to focus a little bit on our vernal pool habitat garden, and this is a before and after. This is a dry phase to wet phase, compare and contrast what the pool looks like in the summer versus what it looks like in the winter and early spring, full of water, full of rare and endemic plants and animals. We have 4 different species of endangered fairy shrimp that occupy our vernal pools. We have 2 different kinds of pools. Some pools are shallow. We call them short hydro period vernal pools. These are pools that fill up with rainwater and they last for about 3 or 4 weeks and before they evaporate. And then we have a deeper, longer hydro period vernal pools, and these are able to last all the way into like April and May. So they have water in them for like 2 to 3 months. And there are species of fairy shrimp and species of endemic vernal plants that actually require being in the water for a longer period of time. So we have these 2 shallow and deep vernal pools to accommodate the needs of the species that live in them. Hopefully my video works here. I caught some underwater footage of our riverside fairy shrimp. And you can see it's a thriving ecosystem. You got all kinds of copepods and fairy shrimp trying to get their whole entire life cycle done before the water disappears. And you have a lot of quillwort and some other aquatic plants that get their start underwater, and then they finish the rest of their life cycle terrestrially. So one of the things I like to have my students do is compare and contrast those 2 kinds of pools. So they'll do things like take a measurement of the water temperature, dissolved oxygen, particulate matters, turbidity, and compare and contrast how those different factors are different in a shallow versus a deep pool and how they change over time, so that they're kind of keeping track of what's going on with some of the abiotic factors that play a role in the health of the vernal pool. And I also have them track the transition, how some species don't get their start until the water's evaporated and they grow along the margins of the water, versus some of the plants that actually have to get started first underwater in order to then move to a terrestrial existence. By the way, when you're looking at these vernal pool pictures, just notice all of the growth, not just the perennial growth. There's a lot of annual species that make vernal pools their home. So when I talk later on about some of the difficulties of doing these kind of gardens in a public school system, just remember all the stuff that was in the landscape prior to some of the horrible things that the district has done to these outdoor spaces. So I was told that I could share some of my favorite plants that I have here at ELC. And these are some of them: toothed calico flower, San Diego button celery, and orcut grass. These are some really beautiful vernal pool endemics that, whenever I'm lucky enough for them to pop up, because every year is not a guarantee that they're going to germinate. So when they do germinate, I take great delight in their presence, because that means that all of the physical factors were in place for them to be able to germinate and grow. Here, got some monarch butterflies that visit our habitat, vernal pool habitat, sipping on our wart stem ceanothus, coming to the vernal pool margins to sip on water. So lots of monarchs love to visit our vernal pool habitat garden. We also have Baja tree frogs. We have a small population that's established themselves there. And this is a recording from one night when they were singing. And so it's really beautiful to hear frogs singing in the middle of a city. So that's our resident population of Baja tree frogs. And I have a little story I want to share here that really touched me. One of my students would go home, and his father was a truck driver, and he drives for like 6 days and has a day off, and sometimes he'll drive 4 days out of the week and have 3 days off. And in the winter, when the pools were full, the frogs were singing every night. And the student told me that his favorite thing to do with his dad was to make some hot chocolate and sit on their porch, because they lived right across the street from the school. And they just loved sitting outside and listening to the frogs sing and drink their hot chocolate. And I thought that was just a really nice, precious moment that the habitat gardens bring to the neighborhood around the school. Some other vernal favorites of mine: prostrate neveratia, Otay mesa mint, San Diego mesa mint, Hoover's calico flower, woolly marbles. Again, these are all vernal pool endemics, and whenever they pop up, it makes me feel good that my students and I have done something right in recreating the conditions that vernal pool species need. If I had to pick, actually, one of my favorite vernal plants, it would have to be orcut grass. And this is a really rare grass. It requires really specific conditions in a deep vernal pool. It requires hypoxic, low oxygen conditions when the pool first fills up with water. in order for the seeds to germinate. And then it uses CAM photosynthesis, which stands for crustacean acid metabolism. And this is a kind of a photosynthesis that plants that live in really dry and hot environments incorporate in order to make all of their biomass through photosynthesis. And essentially what they do is they open their stomas up at night when temperatures are low, if it's a desert plant like a succulent or a cactus. But many aquatic plants actually use CAM photosynthesis for the underwater phase of their life cycle. And as the water starts to recede and the pool becomes terrestrial, they switch to C4 photosynthesis. So they go from CAM photosynthesis to C4 photosynthesis, depending on whether they're underwater or they're out of the water. And so to get orcut grass to successfully grow in our deeper vernal pool basins when they dry out, again, it makes me feel good that my students and I were able to recreate the correct conditions necessary for a really rare plant like this to be able to thrive, grow, produce new seeds, and hopefully produce more individual plants the following year. Another thing I have my students do is I have them compare and contrast different years. So we photo document changes to the pools, the different kind of species that are growing around the pools. So this is same vernal pool separated by 1 year, and you can see that some of the same species come up, the goldfields and the tidy tips and some owl's clover, but in another year, some of those plants are missing. So just seeing what kind of plants, return more regularly versus ones that are more rare and come up once in a while. And then this is what the vernal pool habitat garden looks like in the summer when the things are hot and dry. Again, take a mental picture of all of the dry material that is in the vernal pools and around the vernal basins. Those are all the desiccated remains of all of our really rare annual species. So it's these desiccated remains that are going to drop their seeds into our seed bank for hopefully a successful future generation. This is our original garden, the Chaparral and Coastal Sage Scrub Garden that we started in 2005. So this will be our 20th anniversary year for the Habitat Gardens. And some of the projects I have my kids do with all of the gardens, but especially the Chaparral Garden, is something called Project Budburst. And what Project Budburst does is it has the students document some of the different stages, some of the phenology that the plants go through. So when they produce their first leaf, if they're a perennial, and if they're deciduous, the first bud, the first flower that opens, they document the time in the day that those firsts happen, and then they upload that information, they share it. I think this is through the forgetting what botanic garden this is that started this, but Project Budburst is connected to many different universities and different ecology departments, and they use the data, the phenology of many different species to document climate change, to document, for example, places where summer is getting longer and fall and winter are getting shorter, and how that affects the timing of these different phonological stages that the plants go through. So that's a citizen science project that I have my kids participate in. Again, my students also collect seeds. We propagate seeds. We help reintroduce seeds to the seed bank, and they store them also, and we refrigerate them for future use. I also use the gardens to just let the public know there are ways to beautify your yard or your backyard, doing xeriscaping, using plants that don't require a lot of water. And it's even better if you're xeriscaping with native species. But just teaching the public and teaching our parents and teaching the community about water conservation, how to have a beautiful front or backyard or a median with far less water use and far less water waste. And of course, our gardens are habitat for pollinators. One year, my students documented that there were 19 different native bees that visited our 3 habitat gardens, 19 different species, which is pretty amazing. You know, if you plant it, they will come. A lot of these species are dependent on very specific flowers and flower sizes and flower shapes. So if you don't have the right kind of plants in your native plant garden or in your palette of native plants, you won't attract the kind of bee that needs that particular plant that's missing from the habitat garden. So we try to have all kinds of different species to try and attract as many different native pollinators as possible and give them a sanctuary in the city where they can find what they need. So we have monarchs, we have flies that mimic bees, Batesian mimicry. Again, this is one of the monarchs that actually hatched from a chrysalis in our desert garden. And we captured it basically feeding on its first flower, which was kind of neat. I also teach my kids about ecosystem services with the habitat gardens that what I want my kids to get when it comes to like learning about like all the invertebrates and all the insects that occupy these gardens is that it's the little things that make everything else happen. We are all dependent on the smallest creatures for our livelihoods, whether that's recycling nutrients, whether that's breaking down detritus, whether that is, again, producing oxygen. There's these ecosystem services. There are these things that nature does for free, and we benefit from it, and we would not be able to live without them. And the gardens are just an example to the students that we need these wild spaces. We need to make room for nature, or else we wouldn't be able to live the lives that we live. Another citizen science project I have my students do is through Audubon. It's called Hummingbirds at Home. And they just document the kinds of hummingbirds that are visiting our gardens, visiting our flowers, nesting in our shrubs and our trees. And so they're documenting what they're doing. Are they feeding? Are they nesting? Are they displaying mating habit rituals? And then we send that information to Audubon, and it helps them to, again, know where hummingbirds are, to understand their population density and their population distribution. So again, another nice citizen science project that my students participate in. And then my students learn a lot about species interactions, a lot of symbiotic relationships that are going on in the gardens. This was a really cool moment that we saw in our chaparral garden of a male and female lynx spider engaged in their mating ritual, which I had never seen before, so it was pretty amazing. They do this very intricate dance on a thread of silk. And the male comes down with his palps to deposit his sperm packets. But if he doesn't have all the right moves, he doesn't have all the right vibrations, the female would reject him. So again, this was pretty amazing for my students and I to observe such an intricate behavior that the spiders engage in to fertilize eggs. And then, of course, we have had a lot of monarch caterpillars munching on our narrowleaf milkweed. Actually, I had to buy a few more plants because they were going through the milkweed really fast. Here's another interesting moment in our desert garden. This really big jumping spider caught a sweat bee on a sweet bush, and it was just interesting to get up close and kind of watch what this spider did, trying to find a location where it could eat in peace. But this is what I'm teaching my kids all the time. There's small, little, intricate things always happening in all the gardens. I try and teach my kids to slow down and really see things and not just walk by. Because when they slow down and they really look, they see some pretty amazing things. And I think that's true for all of us. If we just slow down in life and we try and appreciate things that we normally take for granted, you'd be surprised the things that you're missing. This is our native plant nursery. This is the old location. We had to move our nursery to a new location because there's a lot of construction happening on our campus right now. So this is the new location. I finally found a spot on campus where I'm not in anyone's way. I'm not in the school's way. I'm not in the construction company's way. So we've got a new nice area that we're going to be able to propagate lots of new plants and lots of new seeds and lots of new bulbs for this fall, coming spring. We also do in-class cultivation. So my kids work with cobra lily and round leaf honeydew. Those are two carnivorous plants that are native to California. And so they kind of learn about how to properly care for these plants that actually need nutrient poor water, and they actually feed insects to the carnivorous plants so they get their protein and other vital nutrients that they need. We also have cliff swallows that have taken up residence near our nursery area, and so they built their mud nests near our native plant nursery, and they're always coming and going. And it's kind of cool to have them there. Ultimately, when it's all said and done, it is true that these gardens are outdoor learning spaces for my kids. They're ecological labs outside of my classroom. And they're really these small pockets of urban rewilding. I want to rewild some parts of the urban landscape so that my students can be exposed to nature. It's very hard to get a field trip in LAUSD. They make you do a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of legal hurdles now. Their legal department is afraid of being sued if something happens to a kid on a field trip. So it's really difficult to get them out there. And so I decided if I couldn't take the kids out to nature, I would bring nature to the kids. And so that's ultimately really what these gardens are for. Besides all the learning opportunities, I want my kids to experience some nature, experience the natural world, and have a moment with it. Education, protection, and restoration. That is what the ELC Habitat Gardens are all about. I would say over 1,000 students now have gone through my program and have been able to experience the gardens and work with them and get their hands dirty and be good stewards of endangered species. So that's everything I have to say about the Habitat Gardens. Some recent events have negatively impacted the gardens, which I wanted to kind of bring up because I think it's important to talk about some of the difficulties having these kinds of green spaces on campus can present, especially in a big bureaucracy like LAUSD. So what you're seeing here on the left is when a subcontractor came on campus and they dumped cement slurry into 3 of our vernal pools. I don't know if you know what cement slurry is, but it's really toxic and it changes the pH of the soil, and it just introduces a lot of pollutants that are long-lived. And I videotaped this one just to show you And this happened in the summer when I wasn't on campus, when I was off track. And so someone just thought, you know what, instead of legally dumping it where we're supposed to legally dump it, we're supposed to take it off campus and dispose of it properly. They just thought, we'll dump it in this basin because it looks like nothing's happening here. And so I had to go in with a really, really, really nice heavy duty N95 mask. And I had to scrape all that out and had to basically resurface those vernal pools and reintroduce inoculum from our seed bank to try and reestablish what was naturally happening in that pool. So that was one big issue, was the illegal dumping of cement, basically. And then the landscaping crew came in a little over 2 weeks ago, and they turned what you see on the left into what you see on the right. They completely gutted the habitat garden. They completely removed all the rare and endangered annual species that grow along the margins and grow in the vernal pools. They hacked a bunch of our perennials, just tore branches off, stripped branches off. Just really, really horrible. And I don't know why they did it, because I have a barrier, I have fencing, I have signs that say that really sensitive species, endangered species live there. And they ignored all the signs, and they ignored my barrier and just went in there and just erased over a decade of work. So here's some before and afters. This was one of our shallow pools on the left with all of its wonderful desiccated rare species waiting to drop their seeds. And then this on the right is what they turned it into. I mean, they just weed whacked the whole thing, and then they used a leaf blower and blew it all out. Same thing with our deep vernal pool. So on the left there is all the wonderful, again, detritus and seeds that we're going to drop. And then on the right there is what it looked like after they went in and just completely tore it all apart and completely erased it. Here's the time that they didn't tell me that they were going to go into my nursery and tear up all the concrete. So they went and they took all my potted plants and they just dumped my potted plants in a vernal pool basin, and then proceeded to break up all the cement. Some of that cement went into the habitat garden and crushed plants. As you can see in the upper right corner here, this is our wart stem ceanothus. I don't even think they use pruning equipment to do it. I think they just used their weed whackers and just tore the plant up until the branch they wanted off came off. So yeah, this is kind of what I deal with. Every 2 weeks is a roll of the dice. I never know what I'm going to expect when LAUSD landscaping comes to our school to do their job. I don't know if they're going to leave these spaces alone or if they're going to do something new and horrible to our gardens. So I'm definitely trying to work with the powers that be to try to make sure this never happens again. So I've got my fingers crossed that hopefully this is the last time that I'm going to have to, my students are going to have to deal with really, really horrible damage being done to these really, really sensitive spaces, so that I can keep on doing this with my students. You know, I don't want to get too low. Sometimes I get really upset, and it really bums me out when something like this happens. Sometimes it makes me feel like maybe I should not do this anymore. But I've had too many amazing moments with my students to throw in the towel. So I'm going to keep on keeping on. And my last slide is just a humble request. Anybody out there values what I do with my students and would like for this to continue on, I did create a GoFundMe to get the funds necessary to try and replace and mitigate all the damage that LAUSD's landscaping crew did to the gardens. I forgot to mention that they actually physically removed a bunch of plants, just tore them out of the ground, and they just disappeared. I had a beautiful colony of Shaw's agave just gone. I had a gigantic California boxthorn just completely physically removed from the ground. And I don't know if they thought it was dead because they don't understand what dormancy is. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of really mature plants that had gotten really big and were really settled in, and they were just completely gutted and removed from the garden. So again, if you feel in your heart that this is a worthwhile endeavor, uh, whatever you can provide is helpful. I don't care if it's 50 cents. It's appreciated. And with that, I'm done. Thank you for having me. And I hope I didn't talk too fast.
No, it was beautiful and sad. I don't know if you're watching the chat, but there was some sad reactions there.
Yeah, I need to get into the chat because I'm not seeing it. Let me end the show so I can go in here.
Did you
I'm
pull it
looking,
up?
I'm looking at everything that everyone's saying here. I really
Yeah.
appreciate everybody's, I just appreciate your concern, and feels good to have people have your back.
Um, yeah, so I guess I'll mention to you that the Kanzi grant program is still ongoing. So and we have applicants that have come back for more. So I'll
That
mention
is
that.
something I might be doing that either at the end of this year or next year, put in a new application.
And for those of you listening at home, if you missed a link somehow in your email that announced this meeting, and also on our website in the blog post that talks about this meeting, there's a link to Mr. Nanoski's GoFundMe if you feel it in your heart to help him out. So there's a couple links there in case you missed the QR code tonight.
Is the QR code not showing?
No, I checked it out with my camera and it seems to be just fine.
Oh, okay. But you can still see it, or is it
Yes, I can see
gone?
it. I can see it at this moment. Yes.
Oh, okay. I'd be
So,
happy to answer anyone's questions,
well,
you know.
there were some
I,
earlier in the chat.
I've seen one. The first one that I'm seeing actually is one about the mosquito larva. That's a really good question. When I first started the Vernal Pool Habitat Gardens, one of the concerns was mosquito propagation. And so I actually had to write up a whole protocol that I had to give the vector control to assure them that I wasn't going to be propagating mosquitoes in the neighborhood. I'm forgetting the name of the bacteria, but there's a bacteria that's used in like golf courses and ponds. And it's a bacteria that attacks the digestive tract of the mosquito larva, so they can't eat. And as soon as you introduce that into the water, within 24 hours, all the mosquito larvae are dead. So it doesn't affect any of the other invertebrates. So it doesn't affect any of our rare species. It doesn't affect our clam shrimp or our fairy shrimp. Um, so everybody else in the water is good to go. It only specifically attacks the digestive system of mosquito larvae. And so it takes care of the mosquito problem in an ecologically sensitive way.
Does that only work for like heavy amounts of water, like an aquatic environment, or could I even try this bacteria in normal soil?
I don't know if you could try it in normal soil. I know that it works in pretty much any standing water situation. So whether it's a pond you have in your backyard or whether it's like a lake, like it's just the concentration of it that you would have to adjust for depending on how much water there is in your situation. And my vernal pools aren't that large, so I don't need to use very much. Usually one can of it, I think it's like 16 ounces, usually does the job for me the whole entire time there's water in there. I reapply it like once a month, and keeps the mosquito larvae at bay. I actually am doing an ecological service for the surrounding neighborhood because the vernal pools attract mosquitoes, but then when they lay their eggs in the water, their larvae die. So I'm actually helping to decrease the mosquito population.
It's like a honey trap.
Hmm?
Saying it's like a honey trap. You
Yes,
can all in
exactly.
one place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Tony remarks that it's BT, I think, Bacillus
Yes,
thuringiensis.
yes, that's the one.
Thank you. I'll definitely keep that in mind for myself as well.
Yeah.
I did,
What-
I misspelled it, but you get the idea.
Yes.
so one question is, does LAUSD fund your work at all?
When we first started with the Chaparral Garden, my principal at the time would give me $500 a year. And so I would use that $500 to purchase plants, to purchase seeds, to purchase gardening equipment for the kids, shovels, gloves. And I would make that 500 stretch as much as I could. And then we could start getting a couple of grants. Our first grant we got from Lowe's, which was $2,000. And we were able to use that for about a year and a half. And then we got the Kanzi grant, and the Kanzi grant really kept us going for years and years in doing everything, buying plants, buying equipment for the kids to use, gloves to use, buying fencing materials so that we could create fencing that was protective of the gardens, uh, making interpretive signs so that the public could know what the different gardens were about and why they existed. So definitely the Kanzi grant, out of all the monies that we've been able to utilize to keep this going, was the most important for us. And again, I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful that we were awarded those funds. But yeah, the district really doesn't do anything anymore to help support these gardens. And even some of my administrators, like my past like two principals, um, on paper and on email, they sound like they support the gardens, but in reality, they kind of don't care if they're there or not, which is unfortunate because I always invite them to come outside and see what my students and I are doing with the gardens when we're outside. And I send them invites, I send them emails, and they never show up. So it kind of tells me all I need to know about how much they really support things, unfortunately.
Hey, I've got a question about like a pragmatic sort of thing. In one of your early slides, you got a picture of the digital photography class out there, and they're all standing behind what appears to be just some stakes in the ground.
Yeah, that was
How do
yeah.
you is that what's there normally? What does that fencing look like?
No, it's a little higher now, so now it comes up to maybe your waist. And I didn't want to have a barrier that was like too prohibitive of students being able to interact with the habitat gardens, but I definitely wanted something that was a deterrent for a majority of the kids just jumping in there and running around and doing whatever they wanted. And so I feel like when it comes to the students, I feel like the fencing we have in place is kind of like a nice, um, it's a nice in between of a barrier being too low versus a barrier being too high and being too restrictive.
So
Definitely
it's
something
is it a
more
wire mesh?
permanent. I'm sorry?
It's a wire mesh.
Yes,
Okay.
wire mesh, so you can see through it.
Yeah, George, I've got a few comments and questions.
Yes.
So first of all, I just got to tell you how inspired I am by you and your students. Everything you said just resonates with me so much. My name is Jim Montgomery.
Hi,
Uh,
Jim.
I'm actually with a nonprofit called South Bay Parkland Conservancy, and actually it's our mission to rewild the South Bay. So
Mm.
your rewilding really resonates with me. So I want to keep the conversation going with you. The serendipity of this topic is amazing to me because we are just now teaming up with the city of Gardena and the Friends of Gardena Willows Wetlands Preserve to help them um, tend the land there. And
Yeah.
And so I would love just to collaborate with you as we restore this beautiful wetlands and uplands. So what's the best way to continue the conversation with you?
You know, I could drop my phone number and my email in the chat, or maybe Brent can like forward you my contact information.
Whatever works for you. I can also drop my contact in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, it all works for me, however you
Yeah.
want to communicate.
Have you been to the Gardena Willows before?
No, but I've seen it online and it looks amazing. Looks beautiful. I'm always very jealous of spaces that or school, because that's on a school site, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's
No,
basically,
it's not. I must be thinking of something else. Anyway, I love it when I see a really big space that you can do a lot with.
yeah, it's amazing what the Friends have done. I mean, since the 70s, they protected it, and there's just a lot of great timing where I think a lot of groups are coming together to really help rewild that space. And I would love to again chat with you about how we might be able to, I mean, perhaps get seeds from you or just your knowledge. I mean, your
Mhm.
knowledge just seems amazing to me. Um, so
Yeah, when I really, it's all self-taught, when I started teaching AP environmental science and I really started getting into the nuts and bolts of ecosystems and ecology, I just started becoming fascinated with what Southern California naturally has. So I just started really teaching myself about all these different ecosystems, and I kind of just became a botany nerd. And and then, just trying to instill that in my students. So I kind of want them to become botany nerds and to appreciate the land and to appreciate plants. Well, people think plants are boring. They just sit there and that they don't really do anything. And so I really like to teach my kids that plants are dynamic and they're doing just as amazing and wonderful things as any animal is doing.
yeah, certainly. Yeah, so we basically have three things we're very interested in. One is habitat restoration, but community-based stewardship and education is huge with us, giving students internship possibilities,
Yes.
non-volunteerism, on and on and on. So, yeah, definitely. So I dropped my email and my phone number in there if you want to text me.
Let me go in here. Yeah, oh, there we are. Okay.
And I
Let
can
me-
also arrange, I'm sure, a tour of the Gardena Willows wetlands for you to be able to experience the space. And I would love to sometime come and see what you've got going on there at the school.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy for you to stop on by and give you a little tour of everything that we're doing. Um, I would really appreciate that.
Great,
And
thank
the
you.
more partners, the better.
Yes. Yeah, we're about that too. It's all about the collaboration, about building community and supporting each other.
Yeah, when I was first doing this, um, I think there was only two other schools in all of LAUSD that had like a learning garden or like a habitat native plant garden happening on campus. So it was only like two or three of us 20 years ago. And now it's exploding. LAUSD likes to talk a big talk about how they want to green the schools and they want to do all this stuff. But in a lot of ways, I feel like they fall short, that their talk is a whole lot bigger than their actions.
Yeah, thank you for all that. I will stop dominating the conversation here
Oh, no, thank you, Jim. I definitely look forward to talking to you some more.
for sure.
Yeah, Jim, don't you have a vernal pool under some level of restoration in Redondo?
We tried to get a grant for that and it hasn't happened yet. But definitely the Gardena Willows wetlands is a vernal wetlands. And we're actually applying for a grant to help fund things there. So, but yeah, short answer is not yet. But this one, regardless of whether we get the grant or not, we're working with Gardena Willows Wetlands to make this, to get rid of the invasives and just rewild it.
Yeah. So for those of you still on the line, I think we are still going ahead with a field trip out to the Elizabeth Learning Center. And George, I don't know if you've got that on your calendar. I think it's either late January or early February.
Yeah, I need to look. I don't remember exactly, but that's a good time to come.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And now we'll know the context for what we're seeing when we go out there. So if you're looking at your South Coast CNPS emails, keep your eyes peeled for that date and for the sign up.
Yeah,
And
you can send me an email reminder with that specific date, so I just don't forget it.
oh, 100%.
Yeah, I'd love to have some of my students be docents.
Oh, we'd love that. We would love
Yeah.
that. All right. Are there any other questions from the audience?
Oh, I just wondered, it's Gerald Melling here. Hi, fantastic presentation, really inspiring. My own kids really loved Invisi when they did that, and one of them sort of works in the area now. But I wondered if you had any other staff, or is this just a solo effort?
It's kind of a solo effort. There's like so many people doing different things on our campus. When we first started the Habitat Gardens it was Earth Day 2005, I had about 70 people show up on a Saturday to clear all the invasive plants and weeds in the chaparral garden and to remove a bunch of trash and broken glass and bricks. There was like, our school's really old. Our main campus is like 1920s. So we were finding like Pepsi Cola bottles from like the 1930s. We were finding all kinds of junk, but we had about 70 people come out. These are students, their parents. We had administrators. Administrators brought their kids and their wives and their husbands. It was like, that was probably the most people that I had really invested in getting it started. And as the years have gone by, and as there's been shift in staffing and shifts in our administrative team, it's become more and more a thing that I do with my students. There's a lot of support from my colleagues and stuff, but they're all running their own things. One of them is running an eco club, and another one has a STEM club, and sometimes we can cross pollinate and work together on some things, but everyone's kind of doing their own thing. It's kind of like everyone's kind of stretched thin, doing a bunch of different things and being pulled in a lot of different directions. And so again, it's mostly myself and my students that do, I would say, like 80% of all of the work, the day-to-day activities and so on.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you once again, George. And the tentative date is January 24th, and I will nail that down with you.
Okay.
Make sure that works. But I did advertise that in the chat.
And the 24th is what day of the week is that?
It's probably a weekend.
Oh, good. That's good. Probably like a Saturday.
Most likely.
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. We'll chat some more. I've sent you contact information for Jim.
Okay.
And, anyone else that needs to get in touch with George, I can pass your email along.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you again. Wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you so much. And
All right,
again,
good night,
I really
everyone.
appreciate all of you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, George.